Go, 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 let's get it. I'm a trapping fanatic, that shit automatic, so I cannot turn it on or off. Bitches all on my dick, then she hop on my dick, I'm like, why you keep hopping on and off? Yo, bitch all on my dick, she be doing the most. I tell her, little bitch, she so extra. And my gun up on me, but not run up on me. Niggas, they wanna fight, they some wrestlers.
The story begins with a samurai living on his own with his wife and his child. It's hard to believe, and just a couple years prior, his wife and son almost died in a demon attack. Yorichi was truly thankful to the demon slayer that arrived just in time to save them. But still, he couldn't return to the slayer corpse as too much had happened. He had let the infamous demon escape his grasp, and his very brother had also become an upper moon demon. The one thing that did bring him joy was his family, so he did his very best to protect them by never leaving their side from this point on. But after demons continued to attack their home, Yorichi made a choice. He left his small dream house and went up into the snowy mountains where his only friend had lived for so long. The three arrived on the mountain days later, thanks to Yorichi carrying both his wife and child so they wouldn't get tired or hurt. Sumiyoshi then smiles, greeting them outside, telling them to come in. It's been a while since the two had last seen each other, but Sumiyoshi was glad to see Yorichi again. "My friend, I have a favor to ask you." Yorichi bows his head while crying. "Let my bloodline serve your own, and in exchange, let me stay with you." Sumiyoshi didn't know what to say, but yes, I don't need your family to serve me. How about you show my daughter that amazing breathing style tonight? Yorichi thanks his friend time and time again before getting up and deciding to show off his unique breathing style that night. But one thing I will say here before we continue is in my what ifs, especially for Demon Slayer, the effects of the flames, lightning, and water are real, just because I like to integrate the elements into the battles of the what ifs. But back to the story. Yorichi shows it off, with his son mimicking the movements before falling on his face. Sumiyoshi was smiling the entire time, but the burning style, it was burned into his brain, edged throughout it. As throughout the years, Yorichi continued to tell stories of his adventures as a demon slayer, as it ended up motivating his son, and his friend. Both had a fire like no other to continue his legacy. Yorichi's son and Sumiyoshi's daughter will be the ancestors of Tanjiro and Nezuko. Some time does continue to pass, as the two families eventually combine into one, and for some reason, not even Muzan himself can find them as well. As in his final years before leaving this world, Yorichi has Sumiyoshi's daughter help write him a book detailing Muzan's weakness to sun breathing and detailing each one of his breathing techniques and how they must be used. This will be his final gifts to mankind, as the other will be his family tree, as it would all lead to Tanjiro Tsugikuni, who we see today as a child. He was playing around with his younger siblings when his father Tanjiro would state that today is the day that he would learn their family sun ritual, as it would be passed down to him. That day, as the sun began to set, Tanjiro joined his father for the ritual passed down from father to son of each generation, as it was only passed down to those who were blessed by the gods to see the world differently. This is when we see that Tanjiro and his father both have the see-through world and the Slayer mark. Pay attention, my son, as it's time for you to learn this sacred ritual passed down to us in order to save the world. Tanjiro leans down to his son, putting his hand on his shoulder. I want you to redeem your ancestors and become a demon slayer. Wait, what is that? Tanjiro first tells the great story of Yorichi that was passed down in a book with the sun breathing techniques. As he finishes the story, the sun was almost gone. As Tanjiro stands back up, He completes all 13 forms with no strain on his body at all. He continuously repeats them without any trouble at all from breathing. Tanjiro was in complete shock, as his father was a frail and weak man, or he seemed so, yet he could create flames that burned hotter than the sun, or as if he was the sun. While watching, Tanjiro began copying the movements with his hands, and as his father finished swinging, he turns to see his son. But he was no longer sitting on that rock. "Tanjiro, where are you?" He twisted his head again and again, to then see his son right next to him, in the same stance, with the stick in his hand, completely exhausted, heavily sweating, and breathing heavily. He was almost passed out, causing Tanjiro to ask how long he's been trying to keep up, and the small 8-year-old boy says that he's been doing it since the first repeat of the formations. His father was not only astonished but proud. The happiness and pride quickly turned into fear as Tanjiro would pass out and he fell to the ground. While sleeping, the boy sees a man with long hair with red ends and the same markings and eyes as him. The two were in a bamboo-like forest with a trail where he had stopped. As Tanjiro looked at the man curiously, only to see another approaching with a woman by his side. This other man, he had felt completely different than the one Tanjiro had started with. His mere existence sent chills down the spine of the young boy, and for some reason every bone in his body told him to kill that man, but he couldn't figure out why. As Irichi took his first step into battle, the dream stopped and Tanjiro awoke. He sits up in a cold sweat, looking around. Where is the man with the marking? "Tanjiro, you and your father are the only two in the family who have that unique mark." Tanjiro looks around, wondering what he had just seen. But it felt so real. Was that even a dream? And who were those two? And why does he feel so different after seeing all of that? Tanjiro's siblings would surround him, asking if he was okay and if he needed anything. This is also when his father enters the room that night to discuss his training from this day forth to learn the breath of the sun. The next time we see Tanjiro is when he was at the age of 12, as his father had become bedridden, forcing Tanjiro to take the lead as the head of the family. He's a little different, being raised more as a demon slayer and a soldier. Tanjiro is prideful, still kind-hearted, and carries a strong sense of justice. He plans to make his family once again prosperous and bring their glory, to their name. Tanjiro himself was given a blade passed down from his ancestor. It wasn't his true blade, but the one given to him from a man in the swordsmith village. Tanjiro, at night, was bowing to his father, asking for permission to go take the exams. Tanjiro, for the first time in a while, sat in silence and looked to his son. He was no longer the small, timid boy that he had raised. Now, he was on the steps to become a man and a great warrior. Yes, my son. Now go make all of us proud, especially your ancestors. Tanjiro nodded and stood up, with his red checkered outfit. I shall not fail. He slides the door to close it, and looks at the almost full moon. I must hurry, or I'll be late. Tanjiro runs day and night, until he finds the wisteria trees upon a mountain. As he walks up the steps, seeing the beautiful scenery, it almost brought tears to his own eyes. This is where he hears two girls explain the final selection to the participants, who then ready themselves. Tanjiro paid attention to every word, and slowly made his way to the testing grounds. The see-through world allowed him to spot his first opponents who were trying to sneak up on him from behind the trees. Tanjiro turned his body, dodging the demon and looking at the creature, feeling pity for it. I will end your suffering here and now. Sun breathing. Sunflower lance. The flames surround the blade of Tanjiro, who sent it right through the neck of the demon, cutting his head off. It happened so fast that the demon couldn't even react. After this first true kill, Tanjiro feels an enormous sense of pity for the creatures, as they didn't ask to become this way. I vow to set as many of you free as I can from this place. Tanjiro dashes throughout the dark forest with a serious expression. A group of demons would try to ambush him, but he's so quick, he turns his blade to react, and he shouts out, "Sun breathing, solar, hollow, dragon dance." Tanjiro flips his blade, cutting through each one of the demons, having the dragon of flames completely devour their bodies as well, leaving nothing but ash. He closes his eyes, quickly praying for the demons' relief, and continues on. As he goes throughout this forest, he would eventually come across another demon, one that's been there for far too long. Tanjiro then runs into the hand demon, but he doesn't do so alone. Another swordsman with longer hair with blue ends was there as well. He runs in first, and the demon tries to strike down, but his hand is cut off and a mysterious mist would appear. With the demon being blinded by the fog, Tanjiro cuts off another one of his hands. This time, as he tries to regenerate it, he can't. What? That's impossible. What is this pain, and why is it not leaving my body? After that last attack from Tanjiro, he had landed on a tree branch, where he was standing above the other tester. "Hey there. My name is Tanjiro Tsugikuni. I'm Morichiro Tokito. Well, it's nice to meet you, but I think we should end this fight fast." Morichiro says he agrees, as the two turn to one another before getting this odd sensation. As Morichiro would look at Tanjiro, he somehow sees the memories of his ancestor and sees Yorichi standing near Tanjiro. Meanwhile, Tanjiro sees Michikatsu behind Morichiro. The two then both jump away, dodging the hand of the demon, which would separate them. "So, you two plan to team up to battle me. It doesn't matter. I'll squash both of you like flies and consume your flesh. Not in a million years." The mist becomes more visible, as the only thing that can be seen is the light of the incoming flames. In just a second, the hand demon is taken out by the breathing techniques of the two boys. As it begins fading away, Tanjiro thanked Morichiro for the help, but the boy stated that it was no problem at all. But this was weird for him, as Morichiro didn't even know that he was being so friendly with Tanjiro, as he's never met him a day in his life. And who was that strange man who he saw behind him? He turns to ask Tanjiro himself, but he was already gone. Oh well, it's not like I have to take these exams serious anyway. He slowly walks off in a different direction, as we now see Tanjiro saving some of the other testers from the demons. Morning comes faster than expected, but what was a shock to the two Ubuyashiki children was the fact that only 2 participants had passed this selection. Both turned to each other, realizing who the other was. This caused Tanjiro to smile before stating he failed, as he let so many die inside that place. The Ubuyashiki children would assure him that it would be fine, as there's still many more lives to save, so he has to move past and carry the wills of the fallen with him. The sun ores are then presented to them, but Tanjiro has a different request. "Can the sun ore and my father's current blade be combined together?" They would look at it to see that it was already crafted pretty well, and since the two slayers were the only ones to pass, they do the request. Tanjiro then travels home, waiting for the blade to arrive, alongside his crow, as for some reason, after the exams, his crow didn't come to him like it did for Morichiro. Upon returning home, his family then congratulates him for his success, especially his father, who turns, being near him in his final days. Weeks do pass. On what seems like his father's last day, the blade arrives from the blacksmith. He seemed to be more like an older man from a generation before, but he presents the blade to them, and it turns black once unsheathed. Tanjiro looks at it smiling, and then to his father. "Show me. Just one more time, Tanjiro." His mother and siblings would help their father back outside, where Tanjiro steps out in front of them, and he takes in a deep breath, knowing his father could die at any minute, being able to see his internal organs with a see-through world. He hated the fact so much that he couldn't do anything. Why was life so cruel? And why did things never last forever? This is where the smile of his father caught his eye, and he went into a flashback remembering a saying. As many winters ago, we see Tanjiro and Tanjiro, who was telling him that flowers, like many things, are considered beautiful because they cannot last forever, so they must be cherished while they are around. As if they lasted forever, they would be forgotten. This core memory snaps Tanjiro back into focus as he promises to give his father a proper send-off, one fitting of a great man like him. He begins performing all 13 forms of the breathing style, with his father watching on in amazement. It's as beautiful as when his mother had showed it to him. Such a wonderful sight. Tanjiro turns to his family, seeing their enjoyment as well, and closes his eyes while smiling. Tanjiro, I leave them all in your care. He passes away into the afterlife, in this moment, with Tanjiro noticing, using the see-through world. However, he doesn't stop. He continuously repeats all the forms in rapid succession until night falls. As when he does stop, Tanjiro has tears in his eyes, wishing it didn't have to be this way. But before they could even bury his father, his bird would finally appear. Yet, it wasn't a crow at all. An eagle would fly over the head of the family, stating that a dock near them had a demon who had appeared. Tanjiro nodded and looked to his father, bowing to him. Thank you for everything. But now, I must go. I will see to your grave after. His mother would stop him, handing him the earrings, as he would put them on for the first time. His mother claimed that he looked just like his father did when the two of them met. She wished her son luck as he traveled to the docks to confront this great evil. He arrives, sensing the demon, but also hearing the screams of the villagers. He's led by his eagle to the docks, where he jumps in the way to save a woman. Tanjiro uses his new black blade to block the water claw. You're okay. Get back to the others. Tanjiro then stands, confronting the demon, asking why he would attack this place. But the demon claimed that this was just for fun, as Tanjiro rushed in, striking fear into the demon, who evades the attack and sinks into the water below. Tanjiro looks around, wondering where the demon had went, but doesn't know at all. He then hears the screams of two kids on a small boat out on the lake. The woman from before then screams that that's her children. Don't worry, I'll save them. Tanjiro quickly takes one of the boats and speeds that way as fast as he can. As he gets to a visual distance, he can see that very same demon heading towards the boat as well. Tanjiro speeds up the motion of his rows, getting closer and closer, and he jumps off his boat the same time that the demon would jump out of the water. But another had appeared, grabbing the blade, or the hilt of it, and throwing Tanjiro into the water as he had such a strong grip on it. The first original demon would tell the kids to sit tight, as it sunk back into the water as well. Tanjiro's body for some reason began to feel heavy, as it continued to sink lower and lower into the bottom of the lake. His body reacted on instinct, moving with an agility that was almost inhuman-like, as he spun, dodged, and parried the attacks of the two demons while still underwater. His sword began to take the full force of the attacks alongside his body. The air also seemed to be leaving his lungs faster than he wanted it to. Damn it, this is no good. I need to get back up to the surface for at least just a moment to regain some air. He looks up, seeing the moonlight diminish from his sight. As Tanjiro will then look to see the second demon was placed in some sort of bubble connected to the surface, meaning that one couldn't breathe underwater. The water demon then appears once again, sending slashes towards Tanjiro, but he cut through them, and noticed that his movements felt even slower than the beginning of this fight. So, what was this? The second demon then appeared, trying to finish this battle, but the demons themselves were fast. However, Tanjiro was faster. He moved with fluid grace that masked his strength and his movements were precise and deadly. The demons tried to circle around him, but Tanjiro was too quick, always one step ahead of them. He grabbed the demon, who was using the air bubble from before, and began choking him with one of his arms, using the other to block the attacks from the original demon. The water demon was then forced to send both of them to the surface, where the battle would change, as the water would be frozen to hold them, as they could stand on it. Now, the real battle has begun. No words were exchanged, as Tanjiro charged towards the demons, his sword glowing with an intense heat. The demons embraced themselves for impact, and the first demon, who could manipulate the weight of itself and others to make itself lighter or heavier, then dodged the incoming attack. But Tanjiro ducked under the water shuriken before swinging his blade, cutting the demon's arm off. This is where both of them see a glimpse of Yorichi and Tanjiro, but they don't even know who this is, and they have never met that man before. Tanjiro turns his head once again, looking towards the demons. I need to end this now. The water demon controls the water in the lake, making waves crash upon Tanjiro, but even that isn't good enough. I'm not done yet. Sun breathing. Raging sun. The heat from the slashes completely evaporates the water in front of him as he cuts right through both of the demons, and Tanjiro would end this battle, but almost begins falling into the water, and as he does, his hands are grabbed by the two children who were nearby on their boat, who helped them into their small boat. Thank you for saving us. No, thank you two. I would have got all wet again. It's my job to do so. Now, let's get you two back home. They returned to the destroyed dock, as the rest of the villagers would regroup, thanking Tanjiro for his work. This will be his first successful job as a demon slayer, with many more missions to come. Tanjiro is given another mission very quickly, to go assist another demon slayer who's already headed into a town. It's overrun by demons and ruled by them. Many slayers have been sent there, but none have come back or even reported the mission. A Hashira was supposed to be sent that way, but they're all currently busy with their own mission. Tanjiro is then led by his eagle for about a week of travel until he reaches the town, seeing another slayer, Muichiro Tokiso, who was also tasked with this mission to save the hostages and defeat the group of demons that have taken over this small town. Tanjiro looks to his eagle that lands on a branch, asking it some questions. How many demons are inside currently? The town is completely taken over by a group of 25 lower demons who work together to eliminate anyone we send there. No, that can't be right. Go ask for backup for more slayers. But this doesn't make sense at all. There's no way that many demons would want to work together unless they're working directly under an even stronger demon. Tanjiro runs around the surrounding area until he finds Tokito, who had been scouting as well. Oh, it's you again. Why are you here? I was told this mission required my abilities as well. Where are the other slayers? Tokito gets up, leading Tanjiro to their dead, mutilated bodies on the ground. We must avenge them and make sure their lives have meaning. Muichiro didn't know what he was talking about until behind Tanjiro, he saw the spirits of many fallen demon slayers from this selection or this point. With their wills and spirits, they shall live through me on the battlefield today. Who are you truly? Tanjiro didn't understand this question, as Muichiro sat and thought, and Tanjiro then stated that they needed to make their move now. With Tanjiro's sun breathing and Muichiro's mist breathing, it'll be easier for them to work together and defeat the demons and save the hostages. The two distant cousins must combine their strengths and fight as a team to overcome the odds. They begin to walk straight towards the first gate of the village that was blocked off by two guards. Each one of the demons had different abilities, with the first one using its rock-like abilities to seal the gate, before the second one using its vines to then grab the two. Muichiro slashes through them without even looking, and Tanjiro then states how once they enter, they'll have to kill every demon. I know, so make sure you don't slow me down. Tanjiro nods as the two would dash at the pair of demons. Vines come from the ground and grab Tokito, throwing him into Tanjiro, but the sun-breathing demon slayer is a quick thinker. grabbing his ally before spinning him and tossing him right back, heading towards the Vine Demon. The Rock Demon uses boulders to almost smash Tokito, but he uses a scattering mist slash to blow away the rods. From behind the demon, Tanjiro slashes towards the door, but is stopped by vines appearing. I'll have to be quicker. Well, we'll only get one chance to kill them off, so I hope you're ready. Muichiro and Tanjiro would switch opponents mid-battle, confusing the demons, which leaves an opening for both of them to kill them off with just a single swing. This is when the two see a couple more demon slayers arriving as well. Muichiro, what do you think? I'll find the demon responsible and take him down. You lead the rescue unit. Tanjiro nods and turns back to the small group. I can't promise anything here, but we will not fail. So follow me and help me save the lives of the people inside. Flames appear around the blade of Tanjiro as he rushes into the village with the demon slayers yelling behind him, riled up from his small speech and declaration. They fight throughout the town, encountering demons one by one. Each demon is unique and possesses a challenge for Tanjiro and Muichiro to overcome from their different sides of the town. This battle goes on for the entire night, but is far from over, as finally, they reach the center of the town, where they could find the leader of the demon group. It would be Lower Moon 2, Rokuru. This shocks them, as Tanjiro looks towards him and tells the other demon slayers to move out of the way quickly. Before Tanjiro could finish his statement, the ground then attacked him. His hand and his leg were grabbed, but he cut them off. Not his own, but the ground that was grabbing him. Tanjiro then jumps into the air, looking towards the Lower Moon to see that he was using some sort of potter's wheel to create objects that would attack them. He flips in the air, while using his breathing techniques to cut through the attacks. This is when the Lower 2 demon creates more demons that would attack the group and the civilians in the surrounding area. Tanjiro rushes in fast as he could protect them, but he also needed to defend himself. This is bad. He can create demons just that fast? Before he even realized it, he was surrounded. Tanjiro then tightened the grip on his own blade, as he calmly stated, "Sun breathing, clear blue sky." The flames then cut through around all the demons that surrounded him as he turns to Rokuru. The lower demon would state that he sees something. He sees the memories of Lord Muzan and Yorichi, which strikes fear into his soul. What is this? No. Who is that brat? The Lower Moon demon gets a chill up his own spine and barely dodges the attack of Muichiro Tokito. Close. These brats aren't playing around. So how about we even the playing field? Clay creations of Tanjiro and Muichiro are made, as this will be a small army of them. The demon slayers then behind the two would lose all hope. But these two distant cousins aren't done just yet. Tokito and Tanjiro's demon slayer marks would then truly appear, as this would be different for Tokito, as he sees something completely different. The see-through world, being around Tanjiro, would allow it to manifest within his soul. They also then focus their breathing, tapping into total concentration. Simultaneously, they respectively shout their breathing techniques, with Tanjiro using the 13th form and Muichiro utilizing the second form of an 8-layered mist. They run through each of the clones and appear right before the Lower Moon. Tanjiro slices off his torso, with Tokito getting the neck. The night then halts for a moment, with the sun beginning to rise in the distance. The people return cheering for their heroes, but Tanjiro himself was exhausted, and so was Muichiro. Even with total concentration, their underdeveloped bodies could only do so much at this point. Muichiro would feel this strain, but he also notices that something's different. He sees the world different but doesn't mention it at all, as he assumes this is how Tanjiro sees it as well. The two would smile at each other, as this would be a great victory for the Demon Slayer Corps. However, far away from this land, in another thriving city, which is Tokyo. We see a house. As we slowly zoom in to see Muzan in his adult male form, slamming his hand into the wall after that battle, knowing that an old enemy is back and that he needs to kill him off as soon as possible. As this is where we'll leave off the story for now. Back on the battlefield, Tanjiro and Muichiro sat down, as now another Hashira would arrive. The flame Hashira Rengoku greets them and congratulates the two of them for defeating a lower moon demon. This is where he also takes them back to the Slayer base. Many of the Slayers have their injuries patched, however Muichiro heads off early to continue doing missions. While he does so, Tanjiro decides to take part in some of his own training. He reflects on the battle that he just had and his decision making. He's a great fighter, but because he was a new member of the Slayer Corps, he believed his reactions to certain things could be greatly improved upon. So during this time is also when Muzan has his lower moon demons try to track down the Tsugikuni family. A month or two pass, and Tanjiro gets word that a demon is near his hometown, so he heads there immediately. He follows his eagle back to the town to see it was peaceful, which didn't make sense at all. Why? Why was everything so perfect? And where was this demon? Tanjiro then picks up its scent and heads that way. His eyes would widen as he gets closer and closer towards his house as he began praying while running. No, please, just no. When he arrives, all he can see is some of his family outside their home, covered in blood. I can't be too late. Tanjiro slides the door open, seeing a demon stand up. His black hair flowed in the snowy wind, and Tanjiro looked around, seeing the rest of his siblings, and even Nezuko. And for the first time in his life, he felt a true rage, like no other, and completely blacked out. As when he woke up, he was tied to the ground, and stood before the Hashira, with someone tied up next to him. That was his sister Nezuko. Tanjiro smiled, looking towards her, but her demonic eyes shocked him. The Wind Hashira then holds him down and tells the others to awake. This is when they begin arguing about his demon sister that killed his family, which angered him. He sweeps the feet of Sanemi, breaking the ropes behind him and freeing himself. As he ducks under the blade of Obanai, he then pulls Nezuko away from them. Stay away from her. A man with black hair did this, not my younger sister. Sanemi yells at Tanjiro, calling him a liar. But Kaguya Ubuyashiki then walked forward. Calm down, my children. The boy you were so mad at was actually the one to confront the demon known as Muzan. All the Hashira then turned to him and bombarded him with questions, asking how he survived the battle. Battle? Tanjiro looks at them puzzled, not knowing what they were talking about at all, as this is when Kaguya pointed to Giyu. Well, why don't you tell them what you saw? Giyu sighs, as here we get a flashback from his point of view. He was running through the snowstorm and made it to the Tsugikuni family home. As he arrived, Muzan then jumped through the side of the building, and out from it, following him, was Tanjiro with his slayer mark and his eyes completely white. He was unconscious and fighting the Lord of Demons. Giyu looked at Muzan, completely dumbfounded. He's supposed to be the king of these creatures that strikes fear into all. So why do I feel pity for him? Giyu watches as Tanjiro performs the sun-breathing techniques that completely scar Muzan, who tries to counter. He then sends an attack towards Tanjiro, but Giyu is the one to block it, seeing an opportunity for Tanjiro to kill him now and end everything. Now, all you need to do is finish this. As he turns his head back, he only sees that Tanjiro had completely passed out while standing up, still gripping his blade in his hand. Giyu then looked back towards the other way to see Muzan disappearing from the scene. As he tried to check on Tanjiro, someone else appeared. Nezuko then protected him in her demonic state, but was still human in a way. Giyu prepared to kill her, thinking she would eat Tanjiro, but then she spoke. "Stay away from my brother." Giyu was shocked and decided to knock her out as well. Then, first, he took them both to the Orokodaki, who gave his word that this girl would serve the Slayer corpse, as well as her brother. They all look back at Giyu and to Tanjiro, who promises to lay his life down if Nezuko ever were to harm a regular person. Kaguya then tells Tanjiro that he must keep his word, but he will allow it, seeing as they will be very useful to them. The Hashira are still skeptical, until Giyu tosses Tanjiro's blade to him. "Show them the breathing style that you used." Tanjiro takes a deep breath in and one out. He performs the dance of the fire god, causing many of the Hashira to turn to Rengoku, asking if he was another one of his students. "I do not know this boy, but those flames are different from mine, yet still very powerful." Ubuyashiki had fell to his knees seeing this and asked for the boy's name. "Tanjiro Tsugikuni." Ubuyashiki began crying and actually ran to Tanjiro while looking at the other Hashira. Obadiah asked him to explain this reaction, with Kaguya stating that this boy is the descendant of a man who created the first breathing techniques, which all the others would derive from. He may be their key to salvation. Still, all the Hashira had their doubts, and the meeting would end. Tanjiro and Nezuko stay at the Butterfly Mansion for a little bit, and try to leave. However, the Butterfly girls don't let him, as this is where he has more total concentration training and some other training. He's had it throughout his whole life. But after this training, it becomes more like second nature to him. Tanjiro continuously goes on missions with his sisters for a couple more years. And during this time is when his distant cousin will become a Hashira, as now we can connect the story with the canon timeline, as we see an older Tanjiro now with longer hair at a medium length, with it in a ponytail in the same fashion as Yoriichi, with his signature box on his back with Nezuko inside. It was the afternoon in a town that was having its women stolen by demons. Tanjiro sat upon a roof following a young man throughout a town as he was depressed after losing his wife and having it being blamed on him. When he's alone, Tanjiro then confronts him. "Kazumi, can you tell me something? I'd like to help you." The younger man turns to Tanjiro and begins explaining the story of how she just vanished in the middle of the night. As Tanjiro listens closely, he wonders how the abilities of this demon works, and once night falls, he begins scouting all over the town and picks up the scent quickly. He bursted throughout the town with speed, into a house where he sliced the head off a demon before he could even grab the girl. Tanjiro then watched his body fade into nothing as the girl would wake up. Is it over? From behind the girl on the wall, another demon appears to try and grab her. But Tanjiro is so fast that he slices his head off as well, while still jumping into the portal. He winds up in a separate dimension, where he can see the final demon lurking. It also sees Tanjiro, and fear strikes into its heart, so much so that it petrifies the demon, allowing Tanjiro to kill it and then escape. Our protagonist returns to the surface, swinging the blood off of his katana while also sheathing it. "Thank you, Kazumi. This couldn't have been done without you." "So that's it? You're just gonna leave? I still have nothing. She's gone." He begins crying and yelling at Tanjiro, who stops him by holding a finger to his head. "You say you have nothing, and you say that she's gone. Yet, you still have memories of her that keep her alive within your own soul. There's no need to cry, but honor her death and continue living for the both of you." Tanjiro then heads off from the town, and the eagle flies above his head, telling him of another demon hiding within Akaza, Tokyo. It only takes him 2 days of travel from his current location to reach this place. And when he arrives, it's more like a city than a town. It was a beautiful place, which Tanjiro enjoyed the sights of. He had stopped outside the city and went to a local food cart buying himself and Nezuko something to eat. I wonder if the demon is in the city or just around it. Tanjiro lets his thoughts roam for a moment while he continues to eat, as here he picks up the scent of a demon. But this time it's not Muzan. He's in Tokyo, but he's not inside the city, He's further away in his home, as he could also sense Tanjiro as well. That damn sun-breathing brat. We then see Muzan's scarred face from the last battle with Tanjiro, as he then sends demons after him, but we don't exactly get to see who they are yet. Tanjiro instead had picked up the scent of Yushiro and Lady Tamio, entering the invisible home with Nezuko. As he steps through, Yushiro confronts him. "Who are you, boy? And why have you brought this ugly demon with you?" Seeing Yushiro, Tanjiro doesn't hesitate and grabs his blade, holding it to the throat of the young demon. "Get that filthy black blade away from me. If you're here for Lady Tamio, she's busy right now." "Who is that? Another demon that you're protecting?" Tanjiro then sheathed the blade, looking forward, with the see-through world being able to see the woman inside the building, causing Yushiro to poke his eyes. "Ouch! Why did you do that?" "I see. Those eyes of yours led you here. Very troublesome. Alright, come with me. You might be of use to us." Tanjiro is then led into the house, where he meets Lady Tamio, but she falls down upon seeing him. "It's you, the man from many centuries ago. But how?" She looks at Tanjiro, as he was the spitting image of Yorichi. But as she focuses more, she realizes that Tanjiro must be his descendant. "Forgive me for that. You just look like an old friend." They have a conversation about turning people from demon to human, but mid-conversation they are attacked. As the Tamari balls fly into the room, Tanjiro cuts through all of them and then looks through the hole that was created in the wall. 3 demons then stand there: Susumaru, Yahaba, and Mukago, the lower 4 demon. The lower moon then hides behind the others, showing her shy personality, as Tanjiro would let Nezuko out of the box, telling her to protect Tamio and Yushiro, as he would dash forward while smiling. "I won't let them mess up my chance to save Nezuko." As Tanjiro begins using total concentration, his direction is changed and he slips. From in front of him, Susumaru appeared, swinging her fist, sending him flying into a wall. Tanjiro then looks up, seeing Yahaba. "Oh, okay. I see. That's its ability, and hers must be those spheres." Now, as for that last one, Tanjiro then scans the battlefield but doesn't see Mukago. Wait, where did she go? Mukago then appears behind Tanjiro from his own shadow, trying to strike him, but he blocks it and swings his own blade, cutting off her hand, forcing her back into the shadows, giving Tanjiro a breath to truly think. As Susumaru prepares the next attack, Nezuko comes out of nowhere in her controlled demon form, as the blood of Yorichi allows her to fully control her demonic state, and she kicks off her head, which kills the demon. From this, Tanjiro is able to dash forward towards Yahaba. The arrows come forward, but Tanjiro flips over them and then throws his blade towards him. Sunflower thrust. Tanjiro throws it in a manner causing it to spin, which actually cuts off the head of Yahaba. The Tsugikuni siblings now stand back to back, wondering where the lower moon demon would come from. Tanjiro then thinks harder about the ability, and the moment replays where Mukago appeared from the shadows. His eyes would widen as he yells for Nezuko, who uses the pink flames to burn the entire ground below them, as this also erases their shadows because of how much light will be present in the area. Mukago is burned and forced out from the shadows, as Tanjiro dashes that way, seeing the scared face of a lower moon. He changes his attack to clear blue sky, feeling pity for the demon and killing her in one single blow. Tamio then looks on amazed at the breathing technique of Tanjiro and the blood demon art of Nezuko. Both were amazing, and truly might be the ones to defeat Muzan. As after the battle, Lady Tamio takes her chance to extract the blood from the lower moon demon in order to begin studying it, and she thanks Tanjiro for his quick work, and even Yushiro, who is forced to compliment his strength. The 4 then become allies from this moment on, and Tanjiro heads out of Tokyo, following his bird to another mission. His eagle alerts him of a mission in the southeast, where he would notice another slayer on the trail as well. Tanjiro would wait for the conversation between the slayer and the girl to finish, However, she's the one to bring him into it, calling him cute. Zenitsu then turns, freaking out, realizing Tanjiro does have attractive features as he begins yelling at him, causing Tanjiro to hit him in the head. Quiet down. We have a mission to do. Now let's go. Zenitsu claims that he doesn't want to go, causing Tanjiro to look down at him in disgust, leaving him there and heading towards the house alone. When he arrives into the area, Tanjiro also notices two kids standing outside, so he talks to them. They explain that this just isn't any house. There were monsters inside, one of which who took their elder brother. Tanjiro would nod. I'll save him and anyone else who's inside. As he says this, a drum sound is heard, and then a man comes flying out of a window. Tanjiro runs, catching him, asking if he was okay. I finally did it. I made it out of the house. On the outside. Freedom. The man runs away after saying this, not saying a word. Tanjiro then looks up at the house and heads inside. And once there, he uses the see-through world to then pinpoint some of the demons. Tanjiro then slashes through them without hesitation, as he's killed about 5 of them so far, but then he sees something weird coming right at him. Another Slayer bursted through the wall and bounced around before heading down a hallway. Tanjiro called this strange until he heard the sound of a drum, which would flip him into the room with the Lower Moon 6 demon, who had been promoted once again thanks to the loss of many Lower Moon demons, and he had been given more blood from Muzan himself. Tanjiro then looked towards him and saw the kid in the room as well. I'll have to wait for an opening and then make my move. He taps one of the drums, spinning the room, but while he does so, Tanjiro would float midair. He then punches him. Tanjiro blocks but is sent into the back wall, where he has to spin to avoid multiple slashes coming from the demon as well. He's quick, and those attacks are unpredictable. I'll need to focus a little bit more. Tanjiro then begins to utilize total concentration, preparing his next attack. The drum demon then looks ahead, fearful, because it sees Yorichi instead of Tanjiro. Out of nowhere, the Slayer with the boar head then bursted into the room, swinging his blades towards the demon, yelling he's got him now. Kyogai then raises his arms to block the attack. However, in that moment, Tanjiro was there as well, reacting perfectly. Sun breathing. Raging sun. The torso and head of the Lower Moon demon is cut off with 2 single strikes, as here we do get his backstory, but Tanjiro doesn't even look his way. Instead, he turned towards the boy, asking if he was okay. The young child stated he was fine now, but Tanjiro was then kicked into the wall by Inosuke. You have a demon with you. She's my sister, and there's no need for us to fight. The battle is over. Tanjiro walks the boy out to his siblings, who are sitting down with Zenitsu. While they regroup, Tanjiro then dodges a punch from Inosuke. Their hand-to-hand battle begins, but here it's more of a one-sided battle. Inosuke's flexibility shocks Tanjiro, but he still can't even land a single hit. Tanjiro doesn't even raise his fist to combat him, until Inosuke manages to hit the box on his back, as Tanjiro dodges his next strike, landing one of his own, knocking the mask off of his head. Tanjiro's eagle then tells him of another mission that the 3 of them must go on. Slayers have already been sent to the Spider Mountain, but no reports have come back. Wait, why hasn't a Hashira been sent then? They have been alerted but are currently occupied with their own task. Since Tanjiro is the closest rank to Hashira, he will be sent there, as Ubuyashiki has a special request for him to go. Tanjiro nods, thanking him for the honor, and tells the other Slayers to then follow him. They first do stop and rest at the elderly woman's house, and soon after head towards their mission and arrive at the base of Mount Natagumo. Tanjiro looks up, and then closes his eyes. He sniffs the air, saying that there's more than one in the mountain. And I smell lots of blood. Tanjiro dashes on ahead, leaving Zenitsu and Inosuke in the dust. Ganpachi, get back here. Come on, crybaby, we need to catch up to him. Zenitsu then grabs the leg of Inosuke, stating that Tanjiro is strong enough to handle it on his own, which causes Inosuke to then run off without him, which has a butterfly effect, making Zenitsu go on as well, especially when he thinks of Nezuko being there with Tanjiro. Speaking of our protagonist, we see him cutting down multiple Slayers, from some spider webs, but they also begin attacking him. Their strings then send them all crashing down on Tanjiro, as he's forced to dodge and block their attacks, which was no problem for him at all. However, finding a way to stop them is. Even just cutting one of the threads could prove to be fatal to them. Tanjiro then looks around, performing the first form, dancing around the slayers, while also setting them free. As after he does this, he begins to notice the threads of the spiders. Then, another lower moon appears before them, as if he was floating in the air. "Don't disturb my family's peace." He steps on the spider webs, and then launches himself high up into the mountain. Tanjiro looks around, as Zenitsu and Inosuke arrive to the battlefield as well. Zenitsu was shaking intensely with fear, while Inosuke didn't flinch at all. He jumped over Tanjiro and landed on the ground. Beast breathing, spatial awareness. Inosuke locates the spider mom, and Tanjiro heads there alone. He arrives in top speed, and before she could even react, her head was cut off by him. That makes one, but just how many are there? Tanjiro runs around helping as many slayers as he could, cutting them down until a large demon would appear. The father of the spider family stood over Tanjiro, who had his back turned and threw a punch down. As he does so, it's caught by Nezuko, who is in her own demon form with her horn. "Thanks, Nezuko. Can I leave him to you?" She nods, and Tanjiro guides the slayers to a safer location. As he then points in the direction, multiple slayers are hung up by strings and begin attacking him. Tanjiro flips away. As more webs begin to appear, he's forced to cut through them. Still, he takes a little bit of damage, leading to Rui and his sister smiling. The two siblings rush Tanjiro, who blocks their attacks with pinpoint accuracy. He clashes with Rui over and over, realizing he was the lower moon demon that he was looking for. "If that's the case, then I won't hold back here. You two have taken too many lives already." Tanjiro then jumps back, taking a deep breath in, and we see his Slayer mark activate even further as he opens his eyes once again. We then cut over to Nezuko, who was going blow for blow with the demon father while she was fighting. As she goes for another attack, her arm is grabbed, but Inosuke jumps from the air, cutting off the demon's arm. "Hey there, I'm gonna rip you to shreds." Nezuko then nods as the two then turn to face the demon together. Nezuko rips out her bamboo and smiled before vanishing, appearing above the demon. She then kicks through his other arm, sending it flying into a tree, as Inosuke compliments her strength, and the two rush in, finishing off this demon as well. Zenitsu, on the other hand, was fighting the same demon he was before, running away right now, but he does run into a tree, knocking himself out, which awakens the true warrior within him that defeats this demon. He lays on top of the small building, wondering if the poison that was in his body would kill him, but he was found by Nezuko and Inosuke, as this is where we get our first look at her healing abilities. But this time, reinforcements had also arrived, and realized that this battle was almost over. Giyu runs ahead, seeing the final moments of the battle of Tanjiro versus the two siblings. He dodges Rui's attacks, angering the demon, but Tanjiro completely stops for a moment, with Rui seeing the change, and this as a chance, sending out multiple webs to cut him down. Sun breathing, burning bones, summer sun. Giyu then watches on in amazement at the performance of Tanjiro, who struck them down easily, with not even breaking a sweat. He then looks towards Tanjiro, seeing the once crazy warrior, but now a refined user of the breathing techniques, a slayer who could become a Hashira very soon. Tanjiro stands back up after finishing off another lower moon, and then looks to see Giyu. He pays his respect to the water Hashira by bowing to him. Giyu asks for the status of the others, with Tanjiro stating that their fight should be finishing up soon as well. He then turned his head to see Rui slowly fading away into the afterlife, while also cursing the sun-breathing Slayer. However, in his final moments, he sees Yorichi and actually smiles. "So, you'll be the one to truly set us free." Tanjiro didn't know what he meant by this, but fell to one knee, exhausted from days of constant battle. Giyu asked if he was okay, with Tanjiro stating that he just feels a little tired. Using his breathing techniques is still pretty draining to him sometimes, especially in fights like these that drag out for just a little bit. The Slayers get the remaining survivors and then return them to the Butterfly Mansion in order to recuperate them from their deadly battle. Inosuke and Zenitsu have some injuries, but they are less than the ones in canon. This allows for them to have a faster recovery. While at the Slayer base, Giyu finds Ubuyashiki and has a special request. "Sir, I'd like to step down from my position as Hashira and give it to Tanjiro Tsugikuni." Ubuyashiki gives a soft smile, but has to reject his offer. There can only be a certain amount of Hashira, and for that reason, I have a special position lined up for Tanjiro. The title of Hashira is not one fitting for someone like him, as he doesn't work with how he operates. Giyu understands, and then word is sent to both Rengoku and Tanjiro that they each have another mission coming up. Tanjiro then sets out and meets with Rengoku, the Flame Hashira, on the train days later. Both sit down and begin eating their small lunches. "Tanjiro Tsugikuni, you are a formidable swordsman, and I commend you for it." "Thanks, but I'm nothing compared to that of a Hashira." "Nonsense. In fact, I think I'd take you on as my pupil during this mission." Tanjiro looks at Rengoku, thinking about it but declines the offer, stating that he'd rather work alongside Rengoku, not under him. The Flame Hashira can only smile while continuing to eat, thinking to himself that Ubuyashiki was truly right about him. As the two get halfway through their meals, Zenitsu and Inosuke come onto the train, and as the lights do go off, a demon appears on another train cart. Quickly, before they can even get a chance, Tanjiro and Rengoku would appear. Tanjiro saved the civilian while Rengoku blocked the attack. "Good work, Tsugikuni. Now, to finish him off." Flame breathing. Sea of fire. Rengoku then slices the head off, while barely trying, causing Tanjiro to smile. As they prepare to move again, we see that all four of our heroes are already fast asleep. Tanjiro himself was having a different dream than the one that was set for him. Instead, it seemed he had traveled back in time and was living through another set of eyes. Yoriichi. "Yoriichi. Hey Yoriichi, can you hear me? We have a mission to go on." Tanjiro looks up, questioning this man who is talking to him, as he sees a man with purple crescent moons on his kimono, while holding a blade as well. "We must go now to the town, as their people are in danger." Tanjiro looks down at his own blade, seeing his reflection within it. "Just who am I?" Michikatsu grabs his hand and tells him that they need to keep up and stop daydreaming. Tanjiro follows him, not even having control of his own body at all. They would make it to a town which was overrun by demons, as Michikatsu tries to make a plan of attack, but it seems whoever Tanjiro was inhabiting or seeing through moved into action. He cuts through each demon with his flames gracefully flowing around him. His brother then joins in with his own moon-like attacks that deal heavy damage as well. The battle is over by the time that the sun rises again, and as the villagers come out to thank their heroes, they focus on Yoriichi because of his hopeful flames. Michikatsu becomes enraged by this and belittles his brother for always taking the shine away from him. They do the same thing over and over, but it seems he always gets the glory. From childhood, Yoriichi has tried to outshine him, and now he's finally done with it. This will be the moment that Michikatsu leaves the Slayer corpse, causing Yoriichi to become saddened. As in this moment is when Tanjiro wakes up, kicking the boy away from himself and Zenitsu. However, Zenitsu remains asleep, but they do wake up the others. After waking up Inosuke, they turn to see that Rengoku had already awoken himself up. "Fear not, as this will all be over soon. Tanjiro, first, let's head." Rengoku turns his head, seeing in the direction of the group of Slayers to see that Tanjiro isn't even there at all. Instead, we see him standing face to face with the Lower Moon Demon, who was waiting on top of a train cart. Tanjiro rushes him without saying a word. He quickly flips and dodges the attacks getting close, only for the demon to grab him. This is when it's revealed that the demon and the train are somehow all connected together, as inside the train cart, Rengoku leads the young demon slayers across each room to protect the civilians. Tanjiro then looks up, wondering where the heart of the train was truly located, as now it might be a little difficult for him to find it because of the battle that's happening in front of him. As the fight continues, Enmu continues to use his blood demon art to confuse Tanjiro, but Tanjiro's strong mental focus and training allows him to resist the illusions put before him. Tanjiro swiftly dodges Enmu's spike projectiles, and, with his heightened reflexes and anticipation, he goes on the offensive, as Enmu quickly realizes who the Slayer is once seeing the bright flames. This was the target Lord Muzan hated the most. The fear strikes his heart, causing him to panic, throwing out attacks one after the other, as Tanjiro strikes through them without even thinking, and then slices the head off of Enmu, as it would fall to the ground but doesn't fade away. Tanjiro himself then realized that he had to keep moving as he headed out, but now someone else would assist him. He turns around, almost having to block the next attack coming towards him, only to see Zenitsu and Inosuke block it for him. Good work, you two. Hold it off for me. Inosuke would tell Gunpachiro not to run off on his own yet, but is left dumbfounded by the speed of him as he vanished without a trace, to head to where the real demon heart was located. As he steps into another train cart, he's dropped down into the inside of it, as he turns seeing the arms of the demon surround him and some of the people inside. There's only seconds for him to react, and we see him take a deep breath in and out, as Tanjiro would use total concentration and slices right through all of the hands quickly. Everyone, get behind me. The people do their best to evacuate while Tanjiro defends them. He doesn't even get a chance to move, as he stands in one spot, deflecting and blocking all the attacks coming his way. As soon as he deflects another one of them, he then dashes to the head, where he can find the heart. He weaves through and ducks multiple arms, getting right down in front of it, as he soon yells, "Sun breathing, clear blue sky." He slashes right through it, causing the train to then slide off the rails, as Rengoku and the rest of the Slayers have to work to protect the people inside the cart as they flip onto the ground. It crashes and it flips, as Tanjiro gets out, holding his sword and using it to keep him up, as his legs would shake from the impact of the damage. His head was also slightly bleeding, while his vision had also become blurred. Good. It seems that everyone was safe. Tanjiro looks ahead, seeing Rengoku come out as well, alongside his comrades. Instantly, he has to turn, blocking another attack from a different demon. Akasa, Upper Moon 3, then stands, sending Tanjiro flying and chasing after him. As he's sliding through the air, he has no time to think, as Akaza then appears behind him, trying to land another blow, but the attack is blocked by Rengoku, the Flame Hashira. I was sent here by my lord to kill both Tanjiro and a Hashira, and I will not fail to do so. Rengoku then blocks another one of his attacks and performs flame breathing, rising scorching sun. This makes Akaza flip away in order to avoid the attack, which leads to this battle truly starting. Akaza rushes in at Tanjiro, who is currently trying to catch his breath after using total concentration. Seeing the attack coming, he reacted on instinct, dodging the blow and using Raging Sun. Akaza blocks each one of his strikes, but is still damaged, as when he would try to regenerate, it's slow, as he then has to block pink arrows that then pierce his body. As he turns, from far away, we would see Nezuko using her own blood demon art, which would be essentially pyrokinetics, as she had created a bow and arrow using her flames and was shooting them towards the demon. He calls her a problem as well, and then turns to face Tanjiro. This is when he doesn't see him at all, and from above, we see Tanjiro floating. He's a real problem. I have to defeat him quickly as possible. Sun breathing, setting sun. Tanjiro tries to slice off the head of Akaza, but the Upper Moon turns his body, only to getting his arm sliced off. Damn you! Akaza then sends an air palm that strikes Tanjiro right in the chest, sending him into Rengoku, who would catch him. Zenitsu and Inosuke can only watch, as both Slayers could stand by side, and they watch the demon rush back in. I will not lose to anyone until I save Nezuko. Tanjiro dashes in even faster than Rengoku, causing the Hashira to step up his game. Kyojiro then shows off his real speed and appears next to Akaza. Your life will end tonight. Rengoku goes for a downward strike, with his blade surrounded in flames, while Tanjiro would appear in front of Akaza using his own sunflower thrust. As here, he has nowhere to run, so he has to use disorder on the ground to crush it and break it below their feet, making them fall to the ground. But Nezuko is able to save both of them and they land on solid ground. Rengoku then tries to get a plan together. However, Tanjiro and Nezuko weren't even paying attention. Each of them had this look in their eyes that let Rengoku know that his words were not reaching them. Tanjiro then closes his eyes, taking a deep breath, seeing his family within his mind, calming himself down. I've truly never faced anyone this strong, and if this is what it takes to save my sister, I may be in for more than I expected. But who said I'd back down and allow you to kill me here? My name is Tanjiro Tsugikuni, and I declare that I'll be the one to defeat you. The Upper Moon can only smile at this challenge, wondering if Tanjiro was a Hashira, so he would ask him. No, I am not. But that doesn't mean my strength isn't enough to defeat you here and now. Nezuko, will you support me? She nods and heals both Rengoku and Tanjiro. Thank you. Tanjiro then looks at the Flame Hashira as the two would nod. Both explode into battle, engaging with the demon once again. The confrontation would mark a relentless amount of exchanges, blows, and slices between each combatant, pushing themselves to their limits, as this battle was truly even in a way that one wouldn't expect, as it got to the point where even Tanjiro and Rengoku became perfectly synced up. Each of their breathing techniques worked perfectly together to catch the demon off guard multiple times. Luckily for Akaza, he could regenerate and his stamina was through the roof. Akaza then showcased his extraordinary combatant prowess, utilizing swift and precise strikes that tested Tanjiro's agility and reflexes. And since Tanjiro was more of a threat to Lord Muzan, he was more of the main focus. Well, Tanjiro's body began heating up more and more as this battle went on, alongside his heart rate. Rengoku, recognizing the gravity of the situation, then unleashed the full extent of his Flame Hashira abilities, engulfing the battlefield in scorching flames, as he then smiles while looking down. I'll have to thank you, Tanjiro, as I believe you're the one who have helped me awaken this power of my own. Tanjiro then looks to his right to see that on Rengoku's left side were flames, flame markings that had appeared on his face, that even go through his eyes. This was even similar to his own Slayer mark, which Rengoku has just obtained, as well as the see-through world looking on in excitement. So this must be the power of a true Hashira. Father, may you guide me to victory. Scorching flames then appear around his body as he sprinted back into battle. Akaza is caught off guard by the new speed and is slashed on his chest. Don't run now, after you have underestimated us time and time again. The burning tiger then appears around Rengoku as he slashes through another one of the arms of Akaza and towards his torso. The demon spins right around to avoid getting damaged even further, but is pierced by several arrows from Nezuko. That damn brat. I can't die here. Akaza then gets a glimpse that the night would soon be over. I need to end this here and now. This is when he flips away, taking his stance with his blood demon art, seeing that this will be the end. Both Tanjiro and Rengoku stood together, while Rengoku holds his blade behind him, charging his attack. Tanjiro holds his in front of him. He then sees his father yelling at him, never to hold back in a true battle, because if it does, it may cost him his life and many others. You're right, father. I will give it everything I've got until the very end. Both slayers begin yelling with all their might, allowing their battle cries to echo out throughout this land. As then, they would rush in to end this fight. The scorching flames of Rengoku and the colossal dragon with sun accents from Tanjiro both absorb Akaza, as he begins laughing, allowing the attacks to come forth, and he doesn't run from them at all. The blade of Rengoku reaches him first, with him being cut right through. As he tries to stop the blade, well, The blade of Tanjiro continuously strikes him repeatedly over and over, and he would try to regenerate, but he can't because of Tanjiro's flames continuously burning him while in this tornado. This is what Lord Muzan had feared, a slayer who may even be able to burn him. On the outside, all that could be seen was a hurricane of flames being wrapped around by a dragon that reaches the top and then crashes down into the eye of the storm. An explosion then goes off as when the dust settles, we see both Rengoku and Tanjiro barely standing, but the body of Akaza was headless. However, it was standing as well. The sun began slowly rising, with his body not going away just yet. His head began to regenerate, allowing his strength to increase even further through his indomitable will. Both Rengoku and Tanjiro were already down for the count, as their bodies were unable to move. Akaza's head would fully regenerate, and he's enraged, but he has to run into the forest. Rengoku looks at Tanjiro, surprised to see him even standing, as he himself couldn't. He was on one knee. Tanjiro then looked ahead, barely seeing Akaza as he would hold his blade up. "I told you that I'd defeat you. So take this." He sends his blade right at Akaza, who has to turn as it strikes right through him, pinning him to a tree. Luckily, he's able to break the blade and get free, running off. However, this scar will be left in his chest even when he heals, from the sword of Tanjiro, who is currently passed out. Tanjiro wakes up days later, with Nezuko next to him, causing him to smile. Kanao then walks in the room happy to see that he was awake, but she has to tell him that a meeting with the Hashira was being called, and he must attend. Tanjiro nods, and knows it was his fault if the demon did get away, but he hoped that he didn't. He's helped out of the bed by one of the servants, and makes it to the meeting place where Rengoku stood, with his injuries recovered as well, except for some bandages that were on his body. Tanjiro kneels before all of them, but Ubuyashiki tells him to lift his head. Today we gather to recognize and bestow a great honor upon a warrior who has exemplified courage, selflessness, and wavering dedication to our cause. It is my honor to stand before you and speak none other than Tanjiro Tsugikuni, a true warrior in our fight against the forces of darkness. Tanjiro's journey as a demon slayer has been nothing short of remarkable. From the moment he has set foot on this path, he has exemplified a spirit of bravery that can inspire us all. His countless battles, he's fought with unwavering determination and has left an undefiable mark on our corpse. He has faced adversaries that would even make the most seasoned warriors tremble. Yet, he has never faltered. But it is not just his prowess in combat that sets Tanjiro apart. His selflessness and compassion are qualities that shine through every action that he takes, whether it is rescuing innocent lives or extending his hand to a fallen comrade. Tanjiro's heart is a beacon of light in the darkness that we face. These are the attributes alone that will make him worthy of a candidate, one to be called a Hashira. However, it is with a heavy heart that I must explain why he cannot assume that title. Tanjiro's journey has been both a blessing and a curse. His unique abilities in sun breathing have granted him incredible strength, but the rank of Hashira is currently filled, and is filled up by you all here. And throughout the centuries, there have only been a set amount of Hashira. Therefore, I propose, with our generation, that we be the ones to make a change, and I believe that should start with Tanjiro. So, it is with a great honor that today I am proud to announce that Tanjiro Tsugikuni shall be bestowed the rank of Ronin, a rank on par, if not on above, the level of that of a Hashira, as this honorary title acknowledges his remarkable achievements and grants him the respect and authority that benefits him, as his incredible skills and unwavering spirit. Tanjiro, my dear comrade, you have earned this through your dedication and so much more. As a Ronin, you will continue to serve as an inspiration to us all, leading by example and tirelessly protecting humanity from the encroaching darkness. May your journey as a Ronin be filled with valor and triumph. The Demon Slayer Corps stands with you. Tanjiro, we are proud to call you one of our own. Tanjiro then begins crying while falling to the ground, as this meant so much to him. For years, his father had told him many speeches and stories about the Hashira, and he'd just earned a rank that's right next to it, if not so similar. This was the honor to his family that he wanted to restore so very bad. Tanjiro then thanks them all and states that he will not disappoint them, as once he's finally healed, Tanjiro is given a new set of clothes to wear from the Butterfly Girls. A sleek black pair of robes with sun designs all over his kimono, as they were golden. Tanjiro then received it from Kanao, who also thanks him for his work. This is where they begin to talk about the coin, and Tanjiro frees her to make her own decisions. As a couple days do pass, as the swordsmith would arrive, giving Tanjiro a brand new blade, Tanjiro unsheathed it, as this one was different. It was still a black blade, but there were small amounts of red on its edge. How did you craft it like this? The swordsmith then had no idea what he was talking about, as the blade did not look like that until he just unsheathed it. Tanjiro nods, asking if this would be another gift from his ancestors, as now he stepped out with his new blade with his father's guard on it, as it was saved from the original from that forest. He then performs sun breathing, allowing those in the butterfly mansion to see it. The beautiful flames illuminate their minds with hope for the future, as Tanjiro felt these flames, as they were much stronger than any other he had produced before. He had thanked the man for his amazing work once again, and apologized for losing the blade, as it was amazing. But he's forgiven. While he waited on another mission, the Butterfly Girls were then taken by Tengen Uzui, the Sound Hashira, as Kanao will be trying to stop him, and he tells her to piss off and that she has her orders. Tanjiro, seeing this, walked over, asking to go with Tengen to the entertainment district. Uzui respected Tanjiro a lot, considering his sun breathing to be very flashy, as well as his rank of Ronin. On top of all of that, he completed a mission with Rengoku and almost defeated an Upper Moon. Tengen smiles, agreeing, but before the two could set off, Zenitsu and Inosuke appear, with Inosuke stating that instead of becoming a Hashira, he was chasing the rank of Ronin instead. So, they wanted to come and help Tanjiro in order to become a Ronin as well. The group of 5 now set off to the entertainment district to figure out where the demons were truly hiding. As once they make it, after days of travel, Tengen Uzui explains the mission about finding his wives, but Zenitsu asks where Tanjiro was, cause he wasn't with them. Oh yeah, as a Ronin samurai, or demon slayer, well, he has no real master. It's a pretty flashy title. It's like a rogue samurai who does as he pleases. He's already explained that he will help me find my wives, but his main objective here is to defeat the demons that lurk here, as either way it will end up with me finding my wives. As we now see Tanjiro walking into the district in a new outfit that makes him look like a wealthy businessman. So this is the entertainment district. Now, just where are you demons lurking? Throughout the day he has no luck but encounters many people gaining connections as well. But when night falls, he picks up the scent of a demon and follows it, running underground to an area where Makio and the other wives were tied up by some sort of ribbon. The ribbon then sees Tanjiro attacking him, believing he was a normal man who just got lost, but it would just be easier to kill him. He then deflects the attacks and flips out into the open. So this is where they were keeping you 3. Not bad at all. I'll need to cut this ribbon down first. Tanjiro then throws off his current robes, showing off his muscular body, alongside the scars that he got from the last battle against Akaza. This is where he runs to the exit where the muscle mice were standing and brought his things to him. He grabs his kimono and the blade standing tall. I owe it to Tengen Uzui to save you 3, so hold tight just for a little bit longer. Sun breathing, Dragon Sun Halo dance. In one instant movement, all of the wives were cut down and caught by Nezuko. The ribbons then attacked Tanjiro once again, causing him to spin and jump off the walls to cut them down. As thanks to the last battle, His senses have been increased tremendously, as he now sees through all the attacks clearly and reacts perfectly, defending himself and the others, cutting right through each ribbon. Sun breathing, burning bone summer sun. This attack allows him to cut all the ribbons, as they will all be scorched and fall to the ground. Tanjiro then turns back to the wives, seeing all their cuts healed by Nezuko already. Good. It should be nighttime now, so Nezuko, lead them to Tengen. She nods and motions for the girls to follow her, as they would do so, calling her cute. As they would go to a different way, Tanjiro then sits on a rooftop looking ahead. Using that very same scent of the ribbons, he picks up the scent of that same demon, and the location of Upper Moon 6, Daki. We see the Upper Moon 6 demon torturing a woman, asking her questions until her arm is cut off by Tanjiro. She then looks back to see the black kimono with the words Ronin down its spine in gold. A Ronin? What the hell is that? Tanjiro pays her no mind, allowing the woman who was hurt to leave after he bandaged her arm. Daki refuses to be ignored and sends her ribbons right at Tanjiro, who then vanished from his position using fake rainbow as an after image, appearing above her and using the fire wheel to slice off her other arm. Luckily for her, she's able to respond, sending Tanjiro all the way out onto another rooftop. As we then go to see Inosuke, Zenitsu, and Tengen, who meet up with Nezuko. Tengen reunites with his wives, thanking Tanjiro once again for his help, but now they need to help him defeat the demon, as it must be an Upper Moon. The two slayers nod, chasing right after Tengen, who dashes off with some crazy speed, and as he arrives, he sees Tanjiro standing still, watching Daki cry about having her head cut off. Seeing this, Tanjiro wonders if she's gonna do the same thing that Akaza did, so before she could say any more, he ran in, trying to cut her body in half, and he's able to do so. These flames continuously burn her, thanks to the red edge on his blade. Still, she's able to regenerate, and Gyutaro, her brother, makes his appearance. In a fierce battle, Gyutaro faced off against Tanjiro and Tengen. Despite their combined strength, Gyutaro's formidable powers made the fight challenging for them. The battle dragged on, as Tanjiro and Tengen struggled to find a way to defeat him. Gyutaro's immense speed and blood demon art forced Tanjiro and Tengen to stay on the defensive. Tanjiro then looked to Gyutaro and tried to slice his neck. But, as he does so, he wasn't able to, so he had to flip, switching to the sunflower thrust, pinning him to a wall, which allowed Tengen to slice his neck. The attack doesn't go through and both are cut by sickles. Their teamwork and synchronization were put to the test as they dodged Gyutaro's relentless attacks. It became evident that a direct confrontation would not be enough to overcome Gyutaro's incredible resilience. Tanjiro then thought of a way to defeat the Upper Moons, and then came to a realization. If Daki's head was cut off and she didn't disappear, the two are connected in some way. Which means, Tengen, we need to cut off the head of Daki and Gyutaro at the same time. Tengen would nod, declaring Tanjiro to be the most flashy swordsman here tonight, proceeding back into the battle with Gyutaro while Tanjiro goes off with Daki. Luckily for Tengen, he has the support of his wives and the other two slayers, as right now Daki was only fighting Nezuko and losing badly, as Nezuko was easily able to grab her and slam her through buildings onto the ground. In her demon form, combined with her blood demon art, made this a cakewalk for the demon's sister, as when Tanjiro arrived, he just cut off her head with one simple attack and told Nezuko to run off with it, as she does so and doesn't even look back, allowing Daki to scream and yell until Nezuko burned off her tongue. Tanjiro here then turns back and bursts it out with speed, arriving to see them still having a little trouble with Gyutaro. His blood demon art was tricky, and it was hard to get around, which made Tengen wonder if he could really do this. He wondered what Rengoku would do here. Gyutaro caught Tengen off guard, going for Suma, as he had no time to react. But then, Gyutaro had fear run throughout every cell in his body. No one could even see Tanjiro use the 13th form, which severed multiple parts of the demon's body, including his head, as Gyutaro didn't even know what hit him at all. As Tanjiro stood still after doing this to the demon, his body did feel some strain from using all the forms combined, especially in such a quick manner like he did. but he could stand. As for his blade, he could see cracks forming on it, which was strange, but that would be okay if he just got it repaired. Tanjiro then would turn back, seeing the body of Gyutaro still standing, as this was when it would explode. As in his final attack, Tanjiro has to turn back, as he manages to jump in the way of everyone else and use his blade in his hand to try and block the damage from hitting them. Tengen yells out his name, and the district in this area is blown away. Minutes? No. Maybe even hours would pass, as Tengen is the first to get up, and he looks around for Tanjiro, as he would find him kneeling on one knee, holding his shattered blade, which only had his hilt and some part of the edge left, as he was unconscious. But the battle, it seemed to be over. Tengen shakes Tanjiro to wake him up, and he instantly is able to stand, but his body is so shaky from the impact. Pretty flashy for someone who isn't a Hashira. What can I say? I'm a Ronin after all. Tengen and Tanjiro would make sure that everyone else is alright, as Nezuko arrives back to heal their injuries. Tengen and his wives would thank Tanjiro for his help, as they head off to help the rest of the citizens in this district. Tanjiro then holds out his hand, looking at the blade, wondering what that memory was, as this is when we see Old Man Yorichi standing in front of his demon brother for their final battle. Yorichi stands in front of Upper Moon 1 Kokoshibo, who used to be his brother, Michikatsu. Tears swell in his eyes, as he doesn't even know what to say. Kokoshibo is only one who's confused, as he doesn't understand how is his brother alive at that age, especially since he was one of the first, well, the very first, to unlock the Slayer mark. Not only that, but what could he have been doing for so long that he could never find him? Their battle is the same as in the original, but this time, Yorichi isn't cut in half. His arms are severed and he's left standing. It's alright, Michikatsu. We will have our battle in another lifetime, as true brothers. The demon screams, as he hates that man and then slices him in half, revealing the flute that he had given to them in their childhood. Tears slowly fall from the eyes of the demon, who looks to his brother. He disappeared into the night, hoping that Yorichi's words would never come true. It seems that now Kokoshibo was awakened from his nap by being summoned by Muzan to the Infinity Castle. A meeting was called, with all of them, meaning that an Upper Moon had been killed. It infuriates Muzan, as Tanjiro was the one to do so. He tells the Upper Moons to kill Tanjiro, no matter the cost. As he casted them away, now we see Tanjiro headed back to the Butterfly Mansion. He explains that he needs a new blade, but his blacksmith is currently in hiding, believing his work to be a failure so far. The blacksmiths or swordsmiths actually take Tanjiro to their village, where he would have to wait to find his personal blacksmith. Tanjiro can't even be blindfolded just because he has a see-through world already, so instead they knock him out and take him there. He arrives many days later to the swordsmith village, instantly realizing that something is here. He has flashes to Yorichi coming to this place as well. Tanjiro doesn't even go to the hot springs, as he heads right to a nearby forest that calls to him. He follows his memories, as it leads him to Kotetsu and the old Yorichi doll. Kotetsu was working on the doll when he realized that Tanjiro was watching him. Seeing the black and gold kimono, he stood and then bowed. The legendary Ronin, Tanjiro Tsugikuni, you're actually here. No need to bow. What is your name? It's Kotetsu. Is that so? Can you tell me something? This doll, why was it made? Kotetsu explains its purpose, while Tanjiro stares blankly into its eyes. I see, but why the 6 arms? It was the only way to replicate the man's movements. My ancestor was that fast? Well, I shouldn't be surprised. Kotetsu, since it might be a while before I leave this place, Do you mind if I partake in training with this doll? The boy steps back, feeling the serious presence of Tanjiro and how he must really want to train with this doll. As, to be honest, when looking at them together, they kind of look like father and son if it wasn't a doll with 6 arms. Are you sure it can make you, well, someone like you stronger? I must try. Even if it's only by a little bit, I have to get stronger. Kotetsu admired this so much and allowed Tanjiro to begin his training. During this month of intense training, Tanjiro, the son Ronin, embarked on a very transformative journey with the Yoriichi doll. Despite already possessing incredible strength, Tanjiro's training with the doll pushed him to new heights of power and skill. Assisting Tanjiro every step of the way was Kotetsu. He was more than just a young kid. He had a talented brain that was meant for this. This grueling training regimen tested his physical and his mental limits. There were plenty of times during this where Tanjiro believed he wouldn't even make it. He got so into his training that he forgot to eat some days. Tanjiro and the doll of his ancestor constantly danced in battle, and through this training, Tanjiro learned that he wasn't even as fast as he had believed. This doll's acceleration was something that he could marvel at. Day after day, Tanjiro tirelessly honed his skills, striking the Yoriichi doll with precision and unwavering determination. Each strike was imbued with his unyielding spirit and unbreakable resolve. As the weeks passed, Tanjiro's movements became more fluid, his strikes more powerful, as the hours of training had transformed him into a force to be reckoned with. His techniques, once impressive, now became awe-inspiring. Finally, after countless hours of relentless practice, Tanjiro had reached a turning point, as with one single strike, he completely overwhelmed the doll, shattering its defenses and leaving it in pieces. Tanjiro doesn't even hesitate to cut through the doll with one final swing. Kotetsu was amazed at the sun-breathing Ronin, believing that this would be impossible. But what was revealed was a special sword. Looking at it, Tanjiro didn't even know what to think what it was. Where have I seen this blade before? Kotetsu would pull it out while Tanjiro was taking a rest, only to be pushed to the ground by Muichiro while he was looking at the blade. Hey, what are you doing? Tanjiro earned that blade. Muichiro looks at Tanjiro, who was laid on his back on a rock, sweating and breathing heavily. He takes the blade over to Tanjiro, apologizing, and dropping it to his feet. Tanjiro thanked him and asked him why he was here. Muichiro explained that he came for a new sword as well, as some training, but it seems Tanjiro had already beat him to the legendary doll. They both take a look at what was left at it and smiled. How was it? Tanjiro stands, while stating it was worse than he could have imagined, as Muichiro would smile once again, stating that he must be ready to be sent on a mission at any time once his blade was prepared. Tanjiro nods and walks away. The search for Hotaru still continues. While the villagers still search for him, Tanjiro begins taking a rest, as he has completed his training. He goes to the hot springs, running into the love Hashira, Mitsuri, who tells him that he's pretty amazing. Tanjiro does comment on his odd feeling, but he can't pinpoint its cause. She states it's most likely because he didn't rest enough during his training, and points him towards the hot springs. He then walks in, believing she was right, and soaks himself in. As he sits there, he hears someone else coming into the water, opening his eyes to see Genya, the brother of the Wind Hashira. Tanjiro waves, but then drifts into his own sleep, with Genya beginning to praise Tanjiro and how strong he was based on just his muscle mass and lean body, even though he was a little bit smaller than him. He then noticed that he kept remembering all the stories around this village about Tanjiro's training, and he's nothing but amazed, wishing he could be like him. While asleep, Tanjiro can also hear the voice of his father, telling him to awaken and protect someone. As in another part of the village, we see Upper Moon 5, Gyoko, about to kill a villager. He goes to cut the small man in half, but he's saved by Tanjiro, who is still wearing his bathrobe. Alert the village and the other Hashira that we're under attack and send someone with some extra swords to this location. The man nods, running off, with Tanjiro turning his head to now face this demon. Another upper moon. The rank in his eyes indicates 5, so he should be stronger than the last two that we'd faced. And if that's the case, Tanjiro then is unexpectedly forced into the air. That was fast, but it shouldn't be a problem. Gyoko states that Tanjiro is the target, and since he has no katana, this should be even easier to kill him. Tentacles rush towards Tanjiro, who just avoids them while looking around to make sure the citizens do have time to evacuate, as he leads the demon from this area. He keeps avoiding attacks, as he can't even get close to the demon thanks to him not having a blade to cut through the tentacles. So for now, this exchange continued to be evenly matched on both sides. Tanjiro then flips away, getting into a hand-to-hand combat stance, as Gyoko looks ahead, wondering what he was doing, and then had a realization. In a way, Tanjiro was mimicking Upper Moon Akaza. But how did this brat learn this technique? No, he doesn't know it. Tanjiro then takes a deep breath in, remembering the hand-to-hand combat training that he had from his father. It wasn't Akaza's stance, but it was very similar, as he rushed in, using his newfound speed, and then kicked Gyoko into a building. Is he even human? The power of that kick shouldn't be possible. This is when we see Tanjiro above him swing his fist down, but it's caught. I've got you now. Gyoko assumes that he would try to strike with his left hand, but he's put into the daze by a headbutt, as Tanjiro flips away, seeing a sword in the building and grabbing it. Finally, now the real battle can begin. He unsheathes it, and gets in his usual stance. Mitsuri and Muichiro had already linked up, but were shocked to find no demons in the village where they were. This didn't make sense at all, as they should be under attack, and multiple have been spotted. However, we quickly cut back to Tanjiro to see him surrounded by 5 demons, Gyoko, and all of Hantango's clones. Sakido, representing his anger, stated that they'll kill him now because Lord Muzan has ordered his death. Tanjiro stood with a blade in his hand, defending himself. So this is how you dishonorable creatures wish to take action. So be it. I will not fail, and I will not fall until the sun rises. Tanjiro becomes serious, with his slayer mark beginning to glow. I am the Sun Ronin, Tanjiro Tsugikuni, and you will not defeat me here. He begins to use total concentration, however the demons make their move. Tanjiro ducks under their first attacks, making his own swing. He's pushed back on the defensive, where he looks around, noticing that this was just the beginning. Gyoko's tentacles made it even harder for Tanjiro to then focus, as he was avoiding their attacks left and right, until a mist began to appear around Upper Moon 5. Both his arms would be cut off, as one of the clones was killed as well. Mitsuri and Muichiro had arrived just in time, telling Tanjiro that the people are evacuated from this area. The breath of relief leaves the Ronin's body, as he looks up, focusing even more on what's in front of him. All the training that he's done to become stronger will now be put to use. Ancestor, guide me to victory. Both Hashira can't even see Tanjiro as he moves ahead. Hinokami Kagura. These beautiful flames surround his blade once more as he slices through Upper Moon's 5 attacks, and then its body. Upper Moon 4 and its clones then stand, and they try to crowd Tanjiro, who then speaks no words. All they could see was Yorichi. This makes them scared, but quickly they begin to focus, dodging his attacks and the ones of the other Hashira. Since one of the clones was already killed, each one of them could have their own one-on-one battles, as Tanjiro takes on Karaku, representing his pleasure. The two have a stare down, with Karaku not noting if he could even defeat Tanjiro by himself, but the pleasure of battle made the demon smile, and Tanjiro wasted no time jumping in once again. I won't drag out any more of my battles. This will be over quickly. Tanjiro appears behind the demon and went to slice its neck off. However, his blade shattered in his hands, causing him to be knocked away into the forest by Karaku, who chases after him. Michiro goes to help except Orogi swoops in, attacking him. Not so fast. I can't allow you to intervene. This is our only chance to kill him, so we won't miss it. Michiro performs his 8-layered mist, cutting right through one of its wings, and then becoming increasingly serious. For a long time, I had forgotten everything. But Tanjiro was the one who made me remember who I truly am. As we see Michiro take a dive into his past, remembering his brother and his father, and how he became a Hashira, unlocking his own Slayer mark in this battle. I will get by you in order to save Tanjiro. We go to Tanjiro, who was laying against a broken tree, looking at his blade. Damn it, it's no good. This is when he looks to his right. You'll see Karaku about to attack, but he's shot multiple times by Genya, who had arrived with Kotetsu. Tanjiro would look up, seeing his new blade in his hands, as Kotetsu tosses it through the air so that Tanjiro can grab it, and he unsheathes it quickly. It was done earlier, thanks to Hotaru not being attacked by the demons. Kotetsu then says that he passed out from exhaustion after finishing the blade, but he told him to deliver it to Tanjiro. This one should never break, no matter what. Tanjiro unsheathed it, with it turning black, but the edge red. This feels different. Karaku has true fear strike his body as he looks at Tanjiro's gaze. Those eyes, why do they remind me of him? Tanjiro vanished, appearing behind him. Not bad, but I can still see you. Karaku slices through Tanjiro with his claws, only for it to be the fake rainbow technique, as Tanjiro then slices off his head, letting it fall to the ground without even breaking a sweat. That's 2. Now 2 more to go. Tanjiro begins running back to the area where he's able to witness the awakening of his fellow Hashira, with both of them fully utilizing their Slayer marks, allowing them to win this battle, especially when working together. Hantengu then panics and summons Zohakuten. Trees then come from the ground with dragons on them, attacking the Slayers, catching them off guard. But Tanjiro jumps in the way, slicing right through them. No more running. I will end this pointless battle. The demon then sends even more trees back to back with compressed sound waves, only for the Sun Ronin to ignore his efforts, as if he wasn't affected at all. Tanjiro swiftly evaded the onslaught of the trees, leaping and then somersaulting through the air with acrobatic grace. Upper Moon 4 was not one to relent, unleashed compressed sound waves again towards Tanjiro, aiming to disorient him and also weaken him. The deafening waves then crashed on Tanjiro's eardrums, threatening and throw him off balance. However, his training and determination allowed him to endure it for just a little while longer, as his unwavering resolve pushing him forward. With the powerful swing of his new red blade, Tanjiro released a flurry of strikes towards the demon, as each one of them was imbued with his newfound strength, cutting through the air with precision and intensity alongside his flames. The demon would sense danger, maneuvering swiftly, utilizing his tree manipulation to then get around and also create a shield of thick branches, barely deflecting Tanjiro's attacks. But it didn't even deflect him as Tanjiro sliced through them like butter. He then also noticed that even though he evaded some of Tanjiro's attacks, they had also reached him, leaving burn marks all over his bodies, as he wouldn't even believe that this was possible. The demon would also notice that the other Hashira began helping out Tanjiro as much as they could. The 3 regrouped, with Tanjiro stating that he will be the one to finish off this enemy, but the 2 of them must hunt down the real body. And they would ask if they really believed that he stood a chance, and he stood in silence. Undeterred, Tanjiro adapted his strategy, combining his swordsmanship with his own superhuman movements. As he danced between Zohakuten's attacks, Tanjiro channeled his fluid and calm nature, striking with unmatched speed and precision. His crimson blade glowed with his flame-like aura, and it sliced through his defenses, leaving gashes in his demonic flesh. I won't allow you to escape now. Sun breathing, raging sun, tenfold. The Slayer continuously performed Raging Sun allowing more and more slashes to cut through the demon. As in an attempt to turn the tide, he intensified his tree manipulation, causing the force around him to come alive as the dragon snaked towards Tanjiro, attempting to bind him and restrict his movements. As he would sense the danger, Tanjiro tapped into his new heightened strength and agility, evading the entangled dragons. With his nimble footwork and expert swordplay, the battle then reached its climax as Tanjiro, fueled by his determination and memory of Yoriichi guiding him, was able to perform all 13 forms without any strain. Once again, as his blade would burn with an intense heat, melting through the demon's defenses, and his cries of agony filled the night, as Tanjiro would bring him to his death with his final strike. He then stood, looking around, noticing that this battle was far from over. Kotetsu and Genya, who were in the area, dropped their jaws. Tanjiro's burned and ripped kimono flowed through the wind, but his blade was held high above his head. Mitsuri and Mushiro both were having trouble keeping track of the original Tantangu until they realized what time it was. The sun began rising, but all they saw in the field was Nezuko chasing after something that was super small. This was the real Hantangu. As she was being burned by the sun while chasing him, Mushiro ran over and tried to help, but she was so far ahead of him. Luckily, Mitsuri was able to flip over both of them and, using her distinct blade, cut off the head, ending this battle once and for all. Mitsuri begins crying, seeing Nezuko in so much pain, as Tanjiro arrived moments later to then see that his very own demon sister had just conquered the sun, standing up and even speaking to him. Many weeks do pass as we get right into the reconstruction of the Swordsmith village. As well at the Butterfly Mansion, a Hashira meeting was held about Nezuko. Obiyashiki notes that she has conquered the sun, and Tanjiro nods. Although this may be good, it really suggested that we will have an all-out war very soon. 4 Hashira have already awakened. No, 5 of you have already awakened. The legendary marks from the past, as these are the former marks of the swordsmen who have gotten very close to killing Muzan. I wish for you to help the rest of the Hashira unlock these marks, and any other slayers who you believe can. They asked Tanjiro and the others to describe the feeling, and after this meeting, each of them has a better understanding of it, as now they must begin their own training with their swordsmen. For quite some time, the slayers do their training under the Hashira. Since Tanjiro is basically a Hashira, he was part of the trainers group as well. As the first person to arrive to his own training was actually Kanao. She was greeted in the area with flame-lit torches around. Tanjiro stood in the center with no shirt and his blade in his hand, waiting. She remembered the words of Shinobu, telling her that this training from the Ronin swordsman will be life or death. This is only awarded to those select few that have been chosen by the Hashira to personally unlock their slayer marks. She looks ahead, entering the large ring. Tanjiro vanishes while opening his eyes. He attacks first and she blocks, but is sent through the area. That strike, it might have just killed me just now. Is this what she meant by life or death? Mid-thought, she was caught by a punch that hit her right in her ribs as she coughs up blood, looking back up at Tanjiro. Stand and fight. Your enemy may be even stronger than me. No, they will be. So fight or perish. Sun breathing. Hinokami Kagura. Flames then surge around Tanjiro as he continuously strikes Kanao. She's cut over and over again by his blade as she feels this hellish sensation of it. Before she could even counter, she then passed out. Kanao wakes up to Nezuko healing her wounds with her flames. As she looks ahead, seeing Inosuke in the ring with Tanjiro. His wildlike movements were doing him, well, fair in this battle. But Tanjiro was going for the kill, and he wasn't playing around. He held nothing back, and for someone like Inosuke who was less experienced, he was cut across his arm, making him drop his blade. No, don't stop. I'm not done yet. Inosuke was then kicked in his throat and knocked out by Tanjiro. Nezuko looks at Kanao, leaning her on a rock to rest as she then walks over, grabbing Inosuke as well, as this is when Zenitsu would later arrive. He began panicking after noticing that this training was actually with Tanjiro. Tanjiro knocked him out and Nezuko sighed, saying that was quick. But his hand went out as she sat back down, watching the real Zenitsu wake up, grabbing his blade. If you were to be my opponent, then I will hold nothing back, Tanjiro. Thunder breathing, first form. Thunderclap and flash. Zenitsu dashes around Tanjiro, striking him from his side, only for him to block and then counter. You're fast, but you'll need even more than that. Tanjiro and Zenitsu go back and forth, clashing with Tanjiro, who began to enjoy this training just a little bit, but he couldn't afford to toy around with them. Sun breathing, Sun Halo Dragon Dance. These flames completely consume Zenitsu and defeat him. Tanjiro then waits for them all to be awakened and healed. As once they were, he states that they will continue this training until they unlock their Slayer marks. Since you four are looked at as the next generation of Hashira, I will do my best to make sure that these expectations of you are met. You may quit if you want to, but I will never lose faith in your abilities. Now, are you ready to continue? They nod, and the training begins once again. Many more days of this continue to happen, but then one night, Ubuyashiki, who was bedridden, had someone pay him a visit. The demon lord himself, Muzan, stood in the moonlit night, allowing it to reflect off of his pale skin, with the cold breeze in the air swaying his dark hair, and he opened his red eyes, looking forward at the sick man, who could barely even turn towards him, noticing his presence. So, you came. What a horrid state you seem to be in, Ubuyashiki. The two continued to stare on at each other. Muzan made his move to kill him, only to be caught in an explosion set off by Ubuyashiki. All the Hashira in the area began to make their move, rushing towards the monastery. Tanjiro himself remembers the smell. Not only that, but this feeling. It has to be him. I won't let him get away now. The first one to appear against Muzan, besides Lady Tamio, was Tanjiro. His pupils couldn't even be seen as he rushed at Muzan after watching the woman be absorbed. Sun breathing, dance of the fire god. Tanjiro leaves slashes all over the demon lord's body, causing him to be angered even further. This brat again. He's still alive? Well, I'll see to it that he dies here and now. Muzan goes to strike Tanjiro, only for Guillaume to appear, cutting right through one of his arms. Good work, Tanjiro. Now, let the rest of us assist you. What? When did you arrive? Hey, Ugly, don't count us out yet. Saname appears slicing across his back with wind breathing, and Muzan can only see Tanjiro. His sleek smile pissed him off so much. Better tread carefully, Muzan. Your arrogance is showing. The demon tries to move, only for more explosions to go off below his feet from the sound Hashira. You all had such flashy interests. How could I not join you? Enough. Muzan then summons the Infinity Castle, separating all the Hashira. He turns, locking eyes with Tanjiro, who states he'll chase him to the ends of the earth if he has to. Tanjiro then falls through, appearing in a room full of demons. They all come from each side, rushing Tanjiro, who would sigh, releasing an immeasurable amount of pressure. Out of my way. He performs the 13th form, clearing the room before standing still once again. I'll cut you down myself, Muzan. Tanjiro steps through the door, looking around, seeing the complex rooms. He focuses on the see-through world, allowing it to guide him. While we see, the other two Hashira begin their own battle. The water and flame Hashira are currently fighting Akaza. Kyojiro, dance with me to death. There are no limits in our battle here. Rengoku blocks the attack, while Giyu counters with the water wheel. Akaza's arm is then slashed off, which only further excites him. As he regenerates, he senses something is off, and turns to see Tanjiro bursting through the room. Damn. Looks like this isn't it either. Just where is that demon? Tanjiro turns seeing the three of them, and ignores them, heading in a different direction, believing these two Hashira will be able to take care of Akaza by themselves. He takes a step, only for Akaza to block his path, appearing in front of him. Why don't you join us? The air around the young swordsman becomes cold, and his eyes glare at Akaza. He vanishes from his standing position, now appearing behind the demon. "Stay out of my way." Tanjiro keeps walking and is then grabbed by Akaza. However, he bursted in the flames from the attacks of Tanjiro that he couldn't even see. He then goes to regenerate, but could barely do that because of these flames. What is this? Why can't I regenerate? These flames hurt more than anything. We then get a flashback of Tanjiro talking with Shinobu and even Tengen, as both give him some help in creating a wisteria flame poison and his own sun explosives. In actuality, Tanjiro had created many things and taken many precautions from each Hashira to make himself stronger. Ever since Nezuko took the medicine, she's been sick and trying to recover. It was now or never, so he has to succeed, and he will do so by any means necessary. Tanjiro then heads off, leaving the Upper Moon 3 to these Hashira. By this time, Shinobu had been consumed by Doma, and the demon who controls the castle was found by Obanai and Tengen, and also Mitsuri, who comes into that room late. Upper Moon 1 stood in her room, staring at his descendant, Muichiro Tokito. The young Hashira stood on guard until a hand touched his shoulder. He looked up, seeing Tanjiro stand next to him with a serious expression. Upper Moon 1 instantly flashes back to Yorichi and what he had told him. They will do a battle in another lifetime. Kokushibo cursed Tanjiro and Yorichi especially, since the resemblance was uncanny. Tanjiro sighs and holds out his blade. There's no doubting it at all. You're Michikatsu, my ancestor's own brother. I've heard the tales of the past that have been passed down through my own family about you. Kokushibo was even pressed that his name transcended time in order to reach this younger generation. Hey Muichiro, stay on guard. This demon is nothing to toy with. Give it everything you've got. Right. Tokito shakes off this feeling of uneasiness to calm himself so that he can fight. Kokushibo notes that each of them is impressive for their young age to have such an insane willpower, especially Tanjiro, who seems not to be afraid at all. But he puts this all up to having his own blood inside of him. Tanjiro holds out his blade and starts his own total concentration. Sun Halo Dragon Dance. Tanjiro swings his blade out, causing the demon to then dodge, and then again. However, mid-swing, Muichiro arrives using 8-layered mist to catch it off guard. He disappears behind them. You two are quite fast. Tanjiro then blocks the attack from Muichiro, telling him to create some distance. Kokushibo notes that Tanjiro is very good at using sun breathing, but not to the level of his own brother. If you could use that breathing technique as good as your ancestor, I might be in a little more trouble. But it seems that would take you at least another decade to reach that level. You just keep running that mouth of yours. Who said I was even at my fullest right now? Kokushibo and Muichiro are shocked as they watch Tanjiro take off a weighted vest that he had made after training with Gyome. His own Slayer mark then stretches across his face, covering more of it, and he activates the see-through world once again. Let's make one thing clear. I have one mission, and that's to kill Muzan, but every fiber in my body is telling me to set your soul free, so you can thank my ancestor for that. Tanjiro stands up and rushes right ahead at the demon. Kokushibo then punches through the fake rainbow and was actually shocked. Tanjiro was now above him using Fire Wheel, and the demon unsheathed his blade to stop it from cutting his neck. Tanjiro cracks a smile while looking up at the aggravated demon. Forcing me to draw my blade is no easy feat. Now, how do you plan to do battle? The two of you can't possibly stand a chance. Hey, shit for brains. Kokushibo is then caught off guard by the wind and stone Hashira using their respective breathing styles. When did he tell you that they would be the only ones fighting? Gyome calms down Muichiro, allowing his head to be clear, and all four Slayers show off their marks. Kokushibo praises them, but they can still not defeat him like this. Even with their numbers, he will win. As he finishes this statement, Tanjiro appears to his side and smirks. The demon then explodes into flames, caused by Tanjiro, who flips away quickly, as he turns, blocking the blade of the demon, allowing Gyome to jump into battle as well. Using the first form of stone breathing, Guillaume manages to cut some of the demon's robes. Sanemi gives Kokushibo no time to think as he slices towards him as well. While continuously dodging their attacks, Kokushibo notes that he's getting some odd feeling. Sanemi is the first to notice that his own blood that he put in the air is taking effect. He tells Tanjiro not to waste a single second as he appears before the demon using Burning Bone Summer Sun. Kokushibo, still, while staggered, is able to match with moon breathing, Lonesome Moon. The sun and moon clash over and over, echoing throughout the battlefield, as Kokushibo takes a deeper look at the body of Tanjiro to see that everything was perfectly balanced. And while looking at Mushiro, who appeared on his side, he took a deep breath in. Obscuring clouds. Kokushibo slashes at the mist Hashira only for him to vanish in the mist. In fact, all of the Hashira had disappeared in this moment that the mist appeared. Each one of them struck from a different angle, attacking the demon. This is when they were able to do their most damage, and Guillaume was able to grab his blade and held him long enough for Sanemi and Tanjiro to dash in, each shouting their respective techniques. Dust Whirlwind Cutter and Raging Sun. Kokushibo avoids the attacks, jumping into the air looking down at all of them. He tries to think of his next movement, but he was instantly shot while suspended above. He quickly lands on the ground trying to figure out which direction the attack could have came from, but thanks to the mist, he had no idea. This is when we see Genya far away, reloading what looks like the early version of a sniper rifle he had made from his own gun. Tanjiro had suggested this to the swordsmith villagers as a way for Genya to take long-range attacks. Not only that, but these bullets were infused with some of Shinobu's own wisteria poison. So, it was deadly, and even some of Sanemi's blood. This was a killer combo, even for Upper Moon 1. He felt the effects instantly, noting his body wanted to rip itself apart. Seeing the bullet wound, Guillaume perfectly performed Stone Breathing's fourth form. Kokushibo moves around the counter, only for Sanemi and Mushiro to sink their attacks. The demon here takes damage from their blows, and you actually get to see the slash marks on his body. All of them think that this could be it, and so does our protagonist. Sun Breathing, Sunflower Thrust. Tanjiro slashes at the demon, only for Kokushibo to focus on him and use his own technique. Moon Breathing 6th form, Perpetual Night, Lonely Moon. Tanjiro is cut across his entire torso and his arms, making him drop his blade once he flips away. These wounds were deep and wouldn't allow for him to move. All the other Hashira instantly jump into battle, allowing Tanjiro to recover, but Kokushibo began morphing. The young Ronin tried his best to breathe, but was only met with blood stuck in his throat. He coughed it out, and with his eyes becoming heavy, somehow, his internal organs had all been damaged in just this one blow. Tanjiro looked up, watching the battle go on, and then heard the voice of his own father. You're putting too much burden on yourself right now. You can't do everything, so focus on what you're able to do. Get rid of all the distractions, and become one with your blade. Sun breathing requires all of your attention and breathing skills, so just ignore the pain, as it would only last for a moment, but the victory here will last for centuries to come. Tanjiro manages to stop the bleeding and looks back up. Nezuko is waiting on me. That's right, son. So don't let her down. Even more than that, don't allow this demon to get the best of you. You are Tanjiro Tsugikuni, my son, who is even stronger than me. Guillaume and Sanemi were doing their best to keep the demon at a distance from Tanjiro. Both their skills were sharpened even further, but they still took damage from the demonic blade. Mushiro had already gotten over his fear of the demon and was helping as much as he could. Seeing that Mushiro was their weakest link, and his misbreathing caused a problem, Kokushibo went right for him, as Mushiro used a 5th form to catch the demon off guard, but he had vanished. Appearing to his side, he swung his blade that cut the arm of the young prodigy off. Well, it would have, if not for Tanjiro who blocked the attack. His pupils couldn't even be seen, and he was still leaking blood. Kokushibo thought he had gotten rid of Tanjiro, only for the sun-breathing user to cut through his defenses. Impossible. His moves have gotten even sharper. Tanjiro appears on his side, using clear blue sky. Kokushibo is forced to counter with the 10th form of moon breathing. Tanjiro blocks and dodges, allowing the other Slayers in the room to attack as well, each one of them using their respective breathing styles, until the demon swordsman uses 5th form to slice all around himself. He looks around with all of his eyes, not seeing Tanjiro, who is above him, performing Fire Wheel. The blade touches the neck of the demon and slices against it. Kokushibo dashes out of the way to avoid his neck being cut off, and is seen standing while holding it. This was the first time since Yoriichi that his blood had been drawn in such a way. Any deeper, and he could have died right there. Tanjiro doesn't waste any moments, leaping right in, using fake rainbow to give himself another opening. Raging Sun. These two slashes make Kokushibo back away quickly, and Sanemi notes that it seems he's cautious, maybe even scared of Tanjiro, so they need to get him an opening. The Wind Hashira uses Dust Whirlwind Cutter to close the distance, and then the 7th form. Kokushibo transforms his blade, since it's the only way to block this attack, but Tanjiro swings his own, covering the air with the Wisteria Poison. The demon staggers long enough for the Wind Hashira to actually land his attacks. Alongside him, we see that Guillaume uses the 4th form to completely rip off an arm of Kokushibo. Muichiro takes his chance, running in like clockwork, backing everyone up by using Upscaring Clouds. Though this was different. Muichiro uses the 7th form in order to help the rest of the Hashira, as it changed the tempo of all their attacks, not just his own. Kokushibo could still see through the mist, but these attacks, they all felt different. Something was a little off. An emotion not known to many demons was fear. From his side, Tanjiro performs the 13th form, combining all 12 movements, and with each attack having a different tempo, and Tanjiro having the Wisteria Poison on his blade added on with the explosives, Kokushibo was sliced into several large pieces that floated in the air. As these pieces hit the ground, Sanemi used Primary Gale Slash to cut them even smaller. Guillaume followed up by making sure he crushed all of them, especially the demon head, leading to the conclusion of this battle. Each Hashira stood proud and injured from the fight, but it was over. Kokushibo curses his brother for actually being right, but he passes on to the next life. They all look to Tanjiro to congratulate him, yet he passed out on the ground. This was a battle that pushed him to his limits, especially since he was fighting with so much bleeding going on the inside of his body. Guillaume put Tanjiro on his back, and they begin to regroup with Genya, who was loading up his sniper. The two brothers actually talk, with Sanemi telling him that this was impressive, but it's not over yet. Genya smiles, and by the time that all this was done, the other fights in the Affinity Castle were concluding. The Hashira dashed into the area where Muzan was, as he was in a cocoon-like state, where no other demon slayer could get to him. But there were many slayers there. Within seconds, all the demon slayers in that room and the surrounding ones were killed by Muzan, who appeared, with white hair, his body looking grotesque, and his weapons on his back were then used to slash right through them. The Hashira arrive into the room, and thanks Yushiro for taking control of the demon that was controlling the castle. Guillaume then leaves Tanjiro with Yushiro, since he was still unconscious, and went to support the other Hashira and demon slayers. Each one of them storms Muzan while the castle flips and turns. Most are focused to dodge his attacks, while defending themselves and others. Sanemi is the first to land a blow, using the 1st form of wind breathing to slash Muzan, but the damage is instantly regenerated as soon as it was made. He scoffs at this while having to dodge another attack. He's then sent into a wall, while Guillaume attacks the Demon Lord. You have caused us so much pain and suffering, and for that, I will punish you with death. All you Hashira are the same. Muzan swipes his attacks towards Guillaume, only for the Stone Hashira to block and counter. Stone breathing 5th form. Arcs of Justice. Both the axe and flail hit Muzan, staggering him. A human has this much strength? That's preposterous. While he's in shock, many more Hashira utilize their own breathing techniques, and all of them try to catch Muzan off guard and end this quickly. The Demon Lord swings rapidly, interrupting their attacks and forcing them to block and jump away. Rengoku states how this is their final opponent, Everything that they've done up until now was to prepare for this. So do not fear the chance of death by this great evil. Look towards the light and set your heart ablaze. Hearing all of this, the Hashira regain their confidence and rush back into battle. Muzan calls all of this so annoying, but then is caught off guard by Zenitsu, thunder breathing first form, thunderclap and flash, sixfold. Muzan is cut over and over again by him, and then from above, we see Inosuke swinging his blades, slashing open the shoulders of the Demon Lord. Kanao is with them, and she uses the rest of Shinobu's wisteria poison, injecting it into his neck. The three of them then gain distance quickly right after using their attacks and saying that they will support the Hashira as well. Muzan curses them and tries to attack, but the room flips thanks to Yushiro, and now he was shot by Genya. This was another sample of Tamiyo's special poison, but that shot was only to speed up its effects. Yushiro then switches the rooms again so that Genya doesn't get killed. Muzan calls this pesky, and is hit by the flames and water back to back. Rengoku and Giyu stood proudly while fighting together. So these are the two that managed to kill Akaza. Impressive, but just not enough. Muzan swings towards them only for a wall of explosives to go off, blocking the attack. Now that's what I call another entrance, sound breathing fourth form. The attacks then go off one after the another, with Muzan now on the defensive. As he goes to make his counter, all the Hashira disappear thanks to a smoke bomb. Alongside this smoke bomb comes a heavy mist. What is this? Muzan displays, well, curiosity of what could happen next, as where did this mist come from? Mushiro would also display how much of a prodigy he truly is by slashing deep into the arms and torso of Muzan while not being damaged at all. The arms and the back whips of the demons slash at everything around them, but Mushiro deflects with the 8 layers mist. As Yushiro flips the room once again, allowing a different set of Hashira to attack. The Snake and Love Hashira combine their respective styles to slam the Demon Lord across the small room and damage his back whips, forcing him to regenerate. He becomes agitated at this prolonged battle and sighs. He orders the demon controlling the castle to rip off her own head, but then she isn't able to thanks to Yushiro being there. But instead, he makes her utter his name. As his curse takes effect, she dies, causing the castle to then crumble, as now we have the Demon Slayers outside, ready to do battle. Muzan, seeing that this caught most of the Hashira off guard, goes to finish off Obinai, who is right in front of him. However, the attack is blocked by flames harder than anything he could have imagined. This couldn't be. The flames then died down, with Tanjiro standing right in front of the Snake Hashira helping him up. I'm sorry for making you all fight without me. Now let's put an end to this. Muzan calls this bravado, but Tanjiro slashes right through one of his arms and it drops to the ground. Of course the demon regenerates, but it shocks him that it was cut off so easily and actually frightened him. He gazed at Tanjiro, only to see Yorichi and said, "No. No. No, no, not again. Why must you haunt me in this century as well?" Tanjiro, still, wasn't done and performed Raging Sun to slash at Muzan's torso, making him blood splatter out in front of his face. Guillaume states that those who can move support Tanjiro as quickly as they can, as his attacks are leaving deep scars on the body of Muzan. Even if he does try to regenerate, Muzan swipes both his arms and his back whips at Tanjiro, trying to create distance, but the Sun Ronin sees right through the attacks, deflecting all of them. He then looks at the organs of the demon, noting that all the hearts in his body were in different places. So this is why Yorichi was forced to use all 12 forms. Then I must do the same. Tanjiro sends the arm whips into the air by deflecting them, making Muzan lose his footing. From every side, the wind, water, sound, and flame Hashira would appear, using their respective breathing styles to deal as much damage as they could. Muzan calls them ants that he'll crush below his feet. As he crushes the ground below everyone, making them jump away, Tanjiro jumps down with them, performing the fire wheel to cut off his back whips. Muzan slowly regenerates and notices it took longer than usual to do so. But why was that? In one moment, he shot twice, by more wisteria poison, but these bullets were designed especially for Muzan, as they burned his flesh and left holes in his torso. These bullets were made with the same material as the blades of the demon slayers, so they had been bathed in sunlight for months. Muzan curses it, and then notices that the poison that Lady Tamayo injected into him caused him to age several thousand years, as now he could see his own scars on his body. He tries to run, but then Zenitsu comes out of nowhere, using the first form of thunder breathing, Godspeed, and slices his torso back open, sending him into a building. As the demon gets up, he then faces the blade of Inosuke, using beast breathing second fang. Inosuke cuts open his shoulders, flipping away while avoiding attacks. While midair, Muzan comments how he won't be able to dodge, so he swings his arms at him. Inosuke dislocated his arms and his shoulders so that they wouldn't be cut off, and laughs in the face of the demon lord. Angered, Muzan rushes in, but Guillaume is shown on its left side. Third form, Stone Skin. Muzan is hit over and over by the relentless attacks, and Rengoku jumps in using his own form, as each of the Hashira begin to pull out their strongest attacks. But not even this was enough to completely destroy Muzan, as all the Hashira were seen with their injuries from all over their bodies, from the whips. But then, the deep mist had returned. Muichiro had cut through Muzan time and time again, as he twisted and turned trying to avoid the attacks, but the prodigy was showing why he was chosen to become a Hashira. Muichiro is then suddenly grabbed by the throat of Muzan, but can't help but crack a devilish smile. "You're wide open now." Muzan can't even react, as his eyes could only widen, as how fast he's cut down by Tanjiro, who sliced down every one of his hearts. Tanjiro and Muichiro then combine their final efforts to sever the head of the Demon Lord once and for all, as each of them would fall to their knees, and the body of Muzan was also burned by the sunlight that began to rise. Once nothing was left, all the demon slayers stood in silence. Karaya then shouts to everyone that the battle has been won, as not a single cell of Muzan is left on the battlefield. All the slayers shout and cry in relief. Tanjiro himself sighs, laying against the stone, heavily bleeding from just attaining a little bit more damage in this battle. It had reopened his wounds. All the Hashira had their own battle scars, but none of them had died in the battle. Only one of them had given up their life in this amazing conquest, and that was Shinobu. While laying against the rock, Tanjiro told his father and his ancestor that he was able to do it, free this world of this great evil, and bring honor upon them. Now, he can finally rest and join them. As he closes his eyes, trying to pass on to the next life, a hand touches his bloody face. "There you go again, getting yourself all worked up just to save me." Tanjiro reopens his eyes, seeing Nezuko as a human. Tanjiro couldn't believe his own eyes and began crying while hugging her tight and sobbing. All the Hashira who stood and watched hadn't realized it, but Tanjiro must have been acting like an adult his entire life, not as a child or even a teenager. Having to bear so much pain and responsibility must have been tough even for him. None of them had even realized how old he was because of this. As many days later, Karaya Ubuyashiki held a meeting with all the remaining Hashira. "I've called you all here to tell you that our mission has been complete, and the Demon Slayer Corps will be disbanded from this day forward. Thank you all for your services, as my family will forever be in your debt." Tanjiro then enters the meeting with Nezuko, Zenitsu, Kanao, Genya, and Inosuke, all sporting black outfits. He then throws the new outfits to each one of their respective Hashira, with their elements or breathing techniques on it, and hands the final outfit to Karaya Ubuyashiki. "Disband the Demon Slayer Corps if you will, but lead us as Ronin samurai who will watch over this country and protect it from any other great evil that comes." Karaya begins crying, but takes Tanjiro up on the deal, stating it will be his pleasure to work with him for many years to come, as the two would give a light-hearted smile And so would the rest of the Hashira and Slayers? No. Samurai. In the room.